Good morning. Good morning. I'm U.S. Marshal for the Eastern District of Wisconsin, Anna Ruzinski. I'm here with Chief Jeffrey Norman, who you all know. If I could have the task force members please come up and join us. This is the part they hate. They'd rather be out on the street working. Thank you, gentlemen. So we are here to talk about Operation North Star. As you will recall, Operation North Star 2 we did in Milwaukee in January. This is part of an effort by the U.S. Marshal Service in 20 major cities across the country to apprehend violent felons. It started in July of 2022 with Phase 1. Milwaukee has been part of Phase 2 and Phase 3. So on last Thursday, the Attorney General announced the closing of Operation North Star Phase 3. You can see the results on a federal level on the poster right there. But more specifically, we wanted to talk in regards to what occurred here in Milwaukee. So in Milwaukee, for Operation North Star 3, we had a total of 255 arrests of violent felons. 417 warrants were cleared. Included in those cleared warrants, 37 for homicide, 9 for sexual assaults, 75 for assaults. Those are some of your non-fatal shootings. 20 for robbery, 26 weapon offenses, and then other egregious offenses to make up the total number. What is most impressive in our efforts here in Milwaukee is 103 firearms were seized. If you look at the total on a national level, there were 555 across the 20 cities. So you're talking 1/5 of that was here in Milwaukee alone. This was done by our fugitive task force members that you see here present in cooperation with the Milwaukee Police Department. We will continue these efforts moving further. You may wonder, why did we seize so many firearms here in Milwaukee? It's because our task force goes the extra step. They don't just go in and find a body and take that body out. What they do is they look through the home, and when they see evidence of illegal activities, they will freeze that house and obtain a search warrant so that they can find the illegal guns and drugs and get them off the street. We also have an advantage that our task force is the only one in the country, the only Marshal task force that is co-located with our HIDA, the high intensity drug trafficking area. And because of that, we have a force multiplier that we can use from the other task force that are at the HIDA location. So with that, certainly this is Chief Norman's city, so I would like to leave it to him to say a few words. Chief?
Thank you, ma'am. On behalf of the Milwaukee Police Department, I'd like to thank U.S. Marshal Davis, also the Eastern U.S. Marshal Ruzinski, our task force members. As the U.S. Marshal Eastern District Ruzinski stated, this is a collaboration. We all know the challenges that we are experiencing in Milwaukee. And seeing that we're able to have a force multiplier of individuals, not only from the federal level, but also our local partners, working together to have that type of impact. We understand that we have made great gains in our city. There are a lot of great things that's going on, but we still have more work to do. And understanding these particular type of collaborations, where we see that there is true outputs, evidence in regards to that we are taking illegal guns being held by those who are considered violent offenders, those who are contributing to overall affecting our safety in the city. We are having true collaborations with evidence. Proud of these partnerships. We look forward to having these partnerships. This is the type of work that we like to report out to our residents, to our city, because it's important for you all to know what we're doing as we deal with this challenge. So again, I'd like to thank the task force, the Eastern District U.S. Marshal Ruzinski, and looking forward to more of these collaborations, more of these efforts, because together we are better. At this time, you want to take any questions at this time?
Starting from the left, again, we'll go around once.
What conditions are required on an operation to activate the force multiplier? What is seen, and what do you guys see that makes you guys bring in the collaboration?
So one, I'm not going to speak on her behalf, but I understand that there's a need. After 2020, seeing some of the challenges we have in firearms, one of the things that's part of the strategy for the Milwaukee Police Department is that we are focusing on firearms on many different levels. We understand prevention. We understand that we want people to be responsible with their weapons. We don't want people leaving guns in cars. We don't want people leaving guns around their homes. But we also understand there's individuals who are acquiring these firearms, violent offenders who are doing violent things. And the one thing that we always talk about within the Milwaukee Police Department is that we will hold people accountable. We will go after those who are not respecting the safety in our respective cities. And so seeing these particular challenges, and again, refer you back to our violent crime report, seeing the challenge that we see for the firearms, whether it's contributing to our homicide numbers or non-fatals, seeing that it's contributing to domestic violence situations, this particular effort dictates that. This is a necessary response to what we're seeing out there and having a focused, targeted particular type of efforts. This is not just a a fishnet of sorts. We are looking at those who have the unfortunate history, those who have the unfortunate intel of their behaviors, and we're utilizing great work between the local and federal level to make an impact.
And I would just add that fugitive apprehension is one of the main missions of the Marshal Service. We cannot do it alone. If we did not have our local task force members to assist us, we wouldn't be able to arrest the amount of fugitives that we do. So it truly is collaborative. That work goes on every day. This particular Operation North Star was just a strategic mission that was started by the Attorney General and a mission of the U.S. Marshal Service that we did it for this particular time.
Just a clarifying question. So, Ms. Ruzinski, when you say that the disproportionate number of firearms found in Milwaukee, you're saying that's because there was a focused attempt to locate firearms, or is it that there are perhaps some more firearms in Milwaukee?
It's not because there's any more firearms in Milwaukee, it's because of the way our task force operates. Our task force does not simply go in and look for a wanted fugitive, go in, grab that person, arrest them, and leave the scene. If we see illegal evidence in that house as we are clearing it, as we are arresting that fugitive, we will then freeze that house, get a search warrant, and we will get those illegal items off the street.
I'm wondering, the arrests doubled that you're announcing today versus what the arrests were in phase 2 here in Milwaukee. What does that say about violent crime in the city of Milwaukee?
I don't think it means that violent crime has increased, and I will let the chief speak to the trend in violent crime. You also have to remember that phase 1 was done in the middle of winter. That makes it a lot more difficult for our task force. They can't sit out and do surveillance at a house because their car is running that looks suspicious in a neighborhood. So the difference in the time frame of when we do it usually has something to do with it. Chief?
I just say it shows that they're good. When we have that type of effort, when you have a true collaborative effort, these are the results. Like fine wine, it only gets better. And so this is something that we need to sit there and recognize the work, the hard work of the men and women of the Milwaukee Police Department, but also our federal partners like the U.S. Marshals. Seeing the effort out there and seeing that comparable to other similar size or even bigger cities, effort makes all the difference. And so I'm just proud to be able to be part of this partnership, understanding that this is a all hands on deck activity, and that you're able to let the residents know, our city know, that this is the effort we're putting forth to make sure that we're safe.
An operation of this size, is there a particular case or arrest that stands out, and were there any injuries with an operation of this size?
I'll hand it over.
I'm proud to say there were no injuries whatsoever. No law enforcement officers, no citizens, no offenders were injured during this operation, which speaks to the professionalism of the task force officers that were on this mission. In regards to specific cases, Scott Keller is my supervisory Deputy U.S. Marshal, and he has a few cases. If you want them highlighted, we can do that now, or we can give it to you after. Does everybody want to hear a couple? Oh, yeah. Okay. Scott, you're up.
All right. I guess one of the first cases I'd like to highlight is a perfect example of the collaboration between our agency, the Milwaukee Police Department. It also goes to show the extent of our jurisdiction in helping with trying to solve these fugitive cases. The one that I'd like to discuss is the case of Anthony Ross. Back on June 11th, there was a homicide that occurred up off of 84th and Marion Street in the city of Milwaukee. In that instance, the female victim was shot to death in a vehicle. At that time, Mr. Ross was labeled as a suspect in that crime. He was charged with felon in possession of a firearm. He has not been charged with the homicide to date, at least to my knowledge, but he was labeled as a suspect. At that time, we received information that he was potentially hiding out in Oklahoma. We ultimately developed information, and his arrest occurred on September 1st of this year in the city of Oklahoma City. In addition to the offense here in Milwaukee, he's also a suspect in several armed robberies in Oklahoma City. So at this point, I believe he's still waiting extradition back to Milwaukee on his Milwaukee charges. Again, in that instance, that was a collaboration between Milwaukee Police Department, Marshal Service, working together, and obviously with our expansive jurisdictional arm, allowed us to continue those efforts across state lines into Oklahoma. There was another instance of it was a reckless endangering safety case. The suspect in that case is Jovan Sanders. Mr. Sanders was wanted for charges of first-degree reckless injury, use of a dangerous weapon, and felon in possession of a firearm. On January 14th of this year, Mr. Sanders was involved in a drug transaction with another subject. During that transaction, Mr. Sanders ends up firing at two subjects, striking at least one of them. Through our efforts with the Milwaukee Police Department, which the case initiated and started, led us to information that our subject may potentially be in the St. Louis area. They came to us and we took over the case at that point. We ultimately ended up locating a potential residence for him. Our task force in St. Louis located Mr. Sanders, arrested him. During the course of that arrest, Mr. Sanders was in possession of a firearm. That firearm ultimately was seen to match the caliber of the firearm related to the shooting here in Milwaukee. In addition, it was found to be a stolen firearm out of St. Louis, in which Mr. Sanders was named the main suspect in. So he's also being looked at charges in the St. Louis area for that firearm. And lastly, although this does not involve violence utilizing a firearm, it does involve kidnapping of a child out of Florida. This was on June 26th. Bay County, Florida Sheriff's Department filed an arrest warrant for a Marquand Edwards and an Adeline Burkett. Both subjects were wanted for interference of child custody, as well as theft of a motor vehicle. In this instance, Ms. Burkett was allowed to watch the child of an associate, and over the course of the evening, they disappeared and left. The home was originated in Panama City. They left Panama City, fled to Milwaukee. After several days, we got contacted regarding the missing child case. During the time when we were getting contacted, Milwaukee Police Department received an anonymous tip about 2 children being left in a park. They responded, and actually it was the 2 missing children that were reported missing. The age of the children were 1 and 2. Both were recovered safely and returned to their respective homes. Within the next 24 hours, based on information obtained from the Milwaukee Police Department, we developed a location for Mr. Edwards and Ms. Burkett. We ended up locating and arresting both of them. Both were hiding in a closet inside a residence.